Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to our INFORMBIO event, which we're running as part of Bioeconomy Ireland Week 2024. So thanks for joining us. Our event is titled Knowledge, Tools and Supports for Implementing Sustainable Bio-Based Solutions for a Greener Ireland. Just to note that the webinar is being recorded. I think some of the information around the tools that we'll be talking about in the presentation will be useful to have a recording when people want to revisit later, if they want to access some of the tools that we'll be presenting as well, as hearing from some of the different speakers that we have today. Just to note, you can add questions into the chat box, and we will have a short Q&A at the end if there are any questions for any of our speakers, but we'll ask you to keep those coming, and then we'll address them all at the end of the webinar. In terms of agenda, so we have a great line of speakers. We have essentially a split webinar where the first part of the webinar will focus on outputs and activities from the INFORMBIO project. So you'll be hearing from Carmen Dominguez on the work of mapping Irish biomass and an introduction to the INFORMBIO tool. We'll be hearing from Wriju Kargupta in terms of the work he's been doing in developing bio-based value chain case studies and a tool to support looking at these and selecting these. And we'll also be hearing from George Bishop, who's going to give a snapshot of the early stage research that George has been conducting on life cycle assessment of bio-based value chains with regards to the INFORMBIO project. And then at the next phase, we're going to be looking at how we can translate that research towards implementation. And so we're going to have some prominent speakers in terms of bioeconomy scale-up development and supports in Ireland. So we'll have Sean O'Grady, who'll be participating on behalf of Irish Bioeconomy Foundation, Catriona Power of the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster, Ian Archer from BioConnect, and Sean Mulvaney from the National Treasury Management Agency. And that's a lot to pack into an hour and 20 minutes, so we'll get moving on it. Just to introduce ourselves, at MTU, we're coordinating this webinar. I represent the CircBio research group. We were established in 2018 and founded by myself and Helena McMahon to promote the development and grow the bioeconomy in the Munster region and out of the Munster Technological University. We're involved in a lot of different activities, and we've secured quite a lot of funding and project developments and programs up to master's taught level, as well as partnerships nationally and internationally. We have a great team of participants, multidisciplinary, a mixture of people who work on lab-based activities, looking at new product development, extraction, scale-up, demonstration, and we also have people who are engineers and scientists who are involved in answering questions around the feasibility, the sustainability of some of these technologies, and others involved in areas such as education, engagement, clustering, and so on. So we have a team of almost 30 researchers who are part of the CircBio group, and we have a number in recruitment as well, about 5, so we're continuing to grow. You can see some of the activities that we're involved in, a lot of national and international research and other types of activities. We'll be talking today about the INFORMBIO project. You'll be hearing from Wriju and Carmen, who are involved in that. And then Catriona later will be talking about the great work of the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster. In terms of INFORMBIO project, this is a project which is funded by the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine. We're kind of midway through the project. The long name of the project is Integrated Framework for Mapping, Monitoring and Modelling Ireland's Bioeconomy. We have a QR code if you want to find out some more information from the project. And if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, you can click the black QR code, and I'll share these again at the end of the webinar. So we have 4 partners. It's led by Munster Technological University, and we collaborate with the University of Galway, Teagasc, and the Central Statistics Office of Ireland. And this is the project team. We've grown to about 10 during the project, including a mix of PIs and postdocs across the different institutes, and also involving Jerry Brady, who's a senior statistician at the Central Statistics Office. And data is what we're interested in the INFORMBIO project, so it's important to have the CSA involved. In terms of our approach for INFORMBIO, we have essentially 2 components of this. One is on looking at developing a foresight study for Ireland's bioeconomy. And how we do this is we look at the types and characteristics of biomass that could be available for supporting bioeconomy development in Ireland, understanding some of the opportunities that can arise from this biomass. So what types of sustainable bio-based value chain opportunities exist based on Irish and international best practice. And then starting to look at the viability of these. So how, for example, they could be economically viable, and we do work on techno-economic assessment, but also looking at the sustainability of these. And that's where we incorporate life cycle assessment to understand the footprint and consequences from implementing some of these value chains. And finally, we develop a foresight analysis based on a model which has been developed by the University of Galway called the Goblin model, which links to Ireland's national inventory and simulates different scenarios under which different bio-based value chains could be deployed to answer what the contribution could be from these value chains to our climate neutrality targets towards 2050. The other aspect of the project then is to develop a framework bioeconomy monitoring system for Ireland's bioeconomy. So to try and create a pathway for a future bioeconomy monitoring system in Ireland. So what we're doing is examining the different data that could be developed and incorporated into a bioeconomy monitoring framework, but also deciding what kind of indicators are important to monitor across economic, environmental, and social indicators. So that's going to be important in terms of setting policy to understand how we're progressing as the bioeconomy grows in Ireland, and to understand how we're achieving targets, for example, and what areas of the bioeconomy are performing well and what areas aren't performing well, and so on. So from today's webinar, what we're going to do, or what you can expect, is we're going to showcase some early prototype project tools for supporting regional bioeconomy development. As I said, we're only halfway through the project, but we thought it's important to share some initial findings from the project, highlight some early project findings and upcoming activities, introduce stakeholders who are involved in supporting bioeconomy scale-up and support activities, and that will be during the second part of the webinar, where we look at the path towards implementation. Okay, so that's all from me for now. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Carmen Dominguez, who's going to go through some of the work she's been doing looking at what potential biomass could be available for developing Ireland's bioeconomy. Over to you, Carmen.
Thank you so much, James, for a nice introduction. I will share my screen now, and I have a few things to show you all today. Very excited because we've been working in this for a couple of years now, and I hope you are very interested in this. So we've been working the mapping of Irish biomasses, and I will also introduce you to the INFORMBIO mapping tool, let's say, and how to use it and so on. So I will have a big overview of what we have been mapping regarding to Irish biomasses, and then we are going to go into the tool, how to download the tool, where everything is published and so on. So there we go. As James said, we have many big activities. 4 of these are laid out here. The base of the INFORMBIO project is the database of Ireland's existing biomasses, and this is what we're going to see now. We are going to look into this feedstock mapping. right? What sectors have we looked into? What the biomasses have we included? We have tried to include a lot of biomasses and sectors, and we have left outside a lot of sectors as well, because there's only so much work we can do in 2 years. Even though that, I think we have covered a lot of sectors. We have included the agriculture sector, and we have included pulses, tillage, grasses, horticulture, energy crops, other crops, and livestock within the agriculture sector, biomasses arising from them. I mean, we have also looked into biomasses arising from the forestry sector. We have looked into the forest stock. We have looked into harvested biomass for industry. We have looked into biomasses generated naturally in the trees, let's say. We have also looked into meat and dairy industry, and brewing, distilling, and cider making industries, as well as urban waste. And finally, also we have included marine biomasses such as fish, shellfish, crustaceans, and seaweeds. And our main year of study has been the year 2020. Okay, so just bear that in mind. There's not always been updated information from every sector. I just want to let you know the type of data that we have identified. I'm going to be talking about feedstock, so I wanted to mention that feedstock is a raw material that is going into a process or a plant as an input to being converted into a product, because I've had people asking me, what's a feedstock? Well, a feedstock basically is a material that is going into a process, and then this material is going to be processed into a product. So we have identified 2 big types of feedstocks. We have the primary feedstock and the secondary feedstock, and here this slide is only so you can see that a primary feedstock, we have considered it as the apples that come from the tree, let's say, and the secondary feedstocks are the branch or the leaves or the apple pomace after the processing of the apple, or the primary feedstock. So the secondary feedstock come from the processing of the primary feedstock. That's how we are been interpreting our data, right? That's how we have been naming our data. So I want to also let you know that we have worked with within the primary feedstocks. We have worked with hectares, so we have worked with yields, we have worked with tons, and we have within the secondary sectors we have worked with percentages, yields, product rate, and product rates, and also product yields. I have a warning sign here because I want to emphasize here that it's not going to be, it hasn't been an easy task to collect all this information. In fact, it was not easy to obtain hectares for every crop. Let's say it has not been easy to collect yields or percentages or rate for all feedstocks. It has not been easy to obtain all this information. So in many cases, information has been estimated and a lot of data has had to be interpreted to arrive to a final overlook. And unfortunately, some assumptions has had been made. So bear that in mind with you when you are interpreting the data, and everything that has been interpreted is being explained why and how in the published information that I'm going to show you later on where it's stored. We have also identified destination or fate of feedstocks. So in addition to the quantification, we have identified how these biomasses are being currently used. We have received this information through almost 40 interviews with experts, where we have verified our quantification estimations and where we have obtained current uses or destination of these feedstocks. And basically a fate or a destination, basically the proportion of the outputs of a process that is destined for this purpose. So one feedstock can have multiple uses. So bear in mind with that this is going to be something also interpreted. And with this fate information, we have developed Sankey diagrams to help visualize the flow of feedstocks in Ireland. So, as I said, fates gathered may not represent the reality in each county. We have tried to have this in a county by county basis. Experts that we have interviewed has kindly agreed and freely meet with us to provide this information in their best opinion, and the facts provided by the experts, whenever possible, were obtained from public databases as well, in addition to the expert's opinion, right? So with the flow and the quantification biomasses, we have been able to develop these types of Sankey diagrams, which are very visual and are very insightful. These are specifically facts obtained from the EPA registered weight flow from meat and dairy industries. All of this is in the public information, right? Everything is published already. You will be able to look into this. Also, the Sankey biomasses that we have generated from silage flow biomasses and other from the distillery industry flow biomasses, right? So there's a lot of Sankey diagrams developed that you will be able to access to freely later on, show you where you can access to this, but also I want to keep talking about what else have we been doing. We have done a county distribution of feedstocks. We have tried to estimate the county by county distribution of the biomasses. This has something that has been also represented in GIS maps, in a geographical information system maps, showing using ArcGIS or QGIS to show the quantitative difference in primary and secondary feedstocks per county, using graduated colors, using bar charts, using pie charts in each county. So basically, we have been doing this type of maps, which are very, very visual. We have help researchers, industries, and interested parties in where is the biomasses, what type of biomass, if they are primary feedstock or if they are secondary feedstocks. Again, you can access to all of this information. It's already published online. And we have also made a desk study of composition of these feedstocks. We have not gone into the laboratories. We have developed this desk study of characterization of the main composition of the feedstocks, right? Using multiple peer-review papers and databases, and these are the compositions here in the green background are the main composition that we've looked into of all the biomasses that we've studied, which are not little. So this composition study is as big as it could be. These are some screenshots of this composition database, this desk study of composition of the feedstocks. You can see that we have laid out the different primary and secondary feedstocks, and then the quantification of the characterization of the composition of feedstocks. Finally, at last but not least, we have also made a desk-based study of multiple peer-reviewed papers and databases and interviews as main sources of information that we've identified about economic details of feedstocks in the low, medium, high prices of euros per ton per feedstock. So this is also other type of information that you can access. Not every information has been found because it's not easy information to find for all the type of feedstocks that we've been studying, but you can have an idea of how everything is positioned or what could be the current value. And I want to highlight and I want to summarize the number of feedstocks that we've studied. We have studied a total of 125 primary feedstocks and 189 secondary feedstocks and 53 waste resources. So you can see in this slide, and I don't want to spend a lot of time reading these numbers. You can see in these slides the ratio of primary, secondary feedstocks and waste studied in each sector. You will be able to access to all of these later on, don't worry. And I also want to show you where is all this information, right? Because this is perhaps the question that you are asking yourself most right now. So we have developed these 4 chapters report, one for each sector, big sector. It's called the report on the quantification of biological raw materials. And also inside each chapter, you will find the methodologies of how we have estimated the quantification of the biomasses. So you will not miss out on how we have done all of this. And also I want to show you now that everything, this big database of quantification and fates and prices and characterization is all into this final bioresource modeling database that we have in the INFORMBIO project. And I will go now, I will stop my slides at the moment, and I will go and show you where everything is stored. So everything is the INFORMBIO project.ie website. I will copy this in the chat just real quick so you can access to this. So as you can see here in our web page, we have in the top right side of the screen, we have an INFORMBIO tools tab and a project outputs tab. So you can access to this information through the INFORMBIO tools and the project outputs tab, both of them. If you go into the INFORMBIO tools tab, you will see that you can click on the bioresource mapping tool. Sorry, apologies, I haven't clicked into this. You can click into the bioresource mapping tool, and then you will read a little bit about what is this bioresource mapping tool. This is the Excel file that I've showed you in the slide. You can read more about this. If you click on read more, this other website web page will open. You can read about how much information is in this Excel file, in this tool. You can read how the tool works. And the most important things are down here. How can I use the bioresource mapping tool? You can download the user guidelines to learn how to use the bioresource mapping tool. Then you can download the tool itself here, and then you can download the report with all the extra details and the methodologies on the biomass arisings here. This button will redirect you to the project outputs webpage that I mentioned before. You will only need to go to the Word Package tool, and you will have all of these reports here and the bioresource modeling database here. And I've clicked here and it will start downloading, right? I've downloaded this before, so I will have this ready. So this is the Excel file where we'll have all this information. You will pump through these Excel sheets where you have, let's see, the quantification of the feedstocks. You will have here the feedstocks. You will have the county by county quantification. You will have here the fate, and you will have the total quantification and the price of all of these feedstocks, feedstock by feedstock. So all of these Excel sheets hold information on the quantification, fate, and the price found for the different biomasses. And if you go to this sheet here called BioRes factor, right, you will find out the composition of all the feedstocks studied is here, right? All of the composition studied are held in here. So I will go back to my presentation and I will skip a few slides because all of these that I have just explained are here in the slides, and we will make these slides available for you, so you will see all of this. And something very interesting this Excel file does is it not only holds the database, it also holds graphics and information that you can interpret with the information studied. So if you go to the last Excel sheet here, map of results, you could see the arisings by protein, by composition, county by county, and you will see other graphs and so on in the blue Excel sheets. So I will just only say, if you want to learn more about the project, if you want to be aware of what we are doing, please follow us in social media, please subscribe to our letter, and you will have access to all of this information in the website. It's already available and you can start downloading and looking into this. Thank you so much for your time. I think I spent a little bit more of time than I should. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks, Carmen. Appreciate that. Great overview of the fantastic work you've been doing. It's worth mentioning this is an expansion of a modeling tool which was used previously in Scotland extensively, and they published some really nice reports. And we collaborated with IBioIC in Scotland through the ICT Biochain project, along with some Spanish partners, to develop the Irish model. And this is an expansion of the model, and the number of feedstocks, which you've mentioned, Carmen, is considerable that have been updated in that. Okay, so our next speaker is Wriju Kargupta. So Wriju has been doing work on collecting potential value chains for development in Ireland's bioeconomy catalogue of value chains. And Wriju is also going to be involved in the techno-economic assessment parts of the project as well. So over to you, Wriju.
Hi, James. Thanks. So I will share my screen. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. So I'm working in the INFORMBIO project along with Carmen and James. So I'm specifically working on the work package 3, which is which listing the bio-based value chains which have a potential opportunity for Ireland. So now once Carmen has done some lot of extensive work on the biomass mapping, the work package 3 looks into how this can be converted into something, a cascading biorefinery. Here, the classification of biomass on a broader sense, you have agriculture, you have the grass, the energy crops, the pulses, which are the primary, as she mentioned, primary feedstock. Then you have the secondary resources, which are the underutilized crops or the residues, the waste, so those things. Then you have the forestry, wood, the pulp, then the forestry secondary resources. Then you come into the blue bioeconomy, like you have the marine microalgae, seaweed, and also the waste. So those, and then the agricultural side streams, the livestock, slurry waste, dairy wastewater, distillery wastewater. So many projects are going on within Europe and especially in Ireland also. So this is just a broad classification of what we have done till now. So 70 value chains, 70 biogas value chains has been identified, which is having like a higher TRL, which can have potentially a game changer for the island's bioeconomy for their ambition to be net zero by 2030. So here you can see that the technology conversion routes can be mechanical, thermochemical, biochemical, chemical, or it can be a series of combination of processes. So this is how it is. And then you have a cascading refinery. Say from grass, you can have protein, you can have biogas. So this is based on the type of technology you use. So it is a cascading one. So one of the sample case study which we have done in our report, which I will show you, it is already in the database, which Carmen showed. So this is what we have done is that some of the grass biorefinery projects that has been done, we have collated the information and we have given a summary. So this is the problem statement, what we are trying to, what they have done. And this is a brief description of what are the feedstock, what are the products, what are the technology, then the technology readiness level. I will come to that here. And then you have the market deployment condition. So again, if you are producing some commodity like from grass, if you are producing protein, which can have a big impact in the soy protein import, so that can have a very huge policy impact. So those things are written down here in a very brief way. The stakeholders involved, which are mostly from the raw biomass and also the technology providers and also the end users. So we have listed them, and the environmental and social consideration in a brief way, and we have given a nice picture of the circular economy concept that this particular biogas value chain is following. Now coming to technology readiness level, so I think this part James will cover. As you go from research, which is academic research, to technology deployment, you have to go from the the proof of concept to the lab-based studies, and then you go in an operational environment, which is basically a pilot scale or a commercial environment. So the TRL 1 to 3 means that it is a very initial stage of the project or the proof of concept has been done. TRL 4 to 6 is like it is still ongoing. The development is ongoing, and 7 to 9, it means that it is developed and the market is there for the product and it is operational. So that is what it is. So I have been extensively involved in work of techno-economic analysis, which we will be doing in the next part of the project, which I am doing currently. So in a brief summary, what we are trying to look into, that you have some experimental data which you get from peer-reviewed publications, from Carmen's database. Then you try to build a process flow diagram from that. Now you have the thermodynamic property of that, like the temperature, pressure. So what happens inside the process, and then you have the mass and energy balance coming from some software. You can use Aspen Plus, you can use SuperPro software. Then you have the equipment sizing and equipment price. Those software help you with that, and then you also get the production cost and the capital investment cost. And then you calculate the financial metrics of the project, like whether grass to protein, say example, is it beneficial, or grass to protein plus biogas is beneficial. So basically it's assessing the situations or the scenarios where the project will be profitable. So yeah, sensitivity analysis can also be done for a primary product, not for 2 or 3 products. It will be difficult, but for primary product this can be done. And then yeah, so we are collaborating with University of Galway. So the 70 biogas value chains that has been collected, from that screening has been done, and we are only taking the 5 to 6 value chains which have highest potential in terms of transition of Ireland's economy to a net zero economy. So we are currently doing the TEA from MTU's perspective. The UG people are mostly focused on the LCA part, which George will talk about in the next few slides. So now I will stop sharing and I will go through this one. One moment. Where we can access this information. Can you see this tool? I think Carmen has already shared the link with you guys in the chat. So yeah, if you go here, information tool, INFORMBIO tools. So from here, you go to the biogas value chain screening tool. So if you click here, you can get the summary of the work here, and the report which we have collected, you can find out from here. So if I click open a new tab, you can find out. So this is the information which I have just talked about in a very brief way. So all the things are done here, and yeah, you guys can just have a look if you feel, if you are interested and that something resonates with your work. And then how to do the screening. Now there are a lot of feedstocks, there are a lot of TRL. So if you go here, these are the tools. So there you will get a menu bar. So you will get a menu bar of the various feedstocks. So suppose you click here, say lignocellulose. Okay. Now TRL can be high, low, moderate. So moderate is like between 3 to 6. High is above 6, and low is like 1 to 3. So if you click here high, and then search, and you will be redirected to a particular value chain. Now you can click this link and read more about this in the format which we have given. So the problem statement is here, TRL is here, value chain description is here. So yeah, all the information which we have in the report, it is coming in a very user-friendly way in the social database. So thanks to the social website developer like Cathal. And yeah, so that is what we are doing currently. And so I think my part is over. So I will pass on to the presentation I will pass now to James.
Thanks, Wriju, and thanks for sharing the tool. Again, this is being recorded, so people will be able to look back and access the tools by reviewing the video. We can share the video link to people subsequently to registrants. Okay, so Wriju mentioned that there's a lot of potential value chains. There's only a certain amount that we can look at in detail within this project, where we can dive into kind of techno-economics and life cycle assessment. And so that work has started. It's at the early stages, but we have George Bishop from the University of Galway. So George is going to be working on the life cycle assessment and environmental modelling components of the value chain. So that would include the life cycle assessment, but also this foresight analysis and backcasting approach that we're using in terms of assessing the environmental impact of these value chains. So George is going to take you through a little bit just some of the early stage research, but really interesting research that he's been doing on the environmental side for some of these value chains. Over to you, George.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, James. And hi, everyone. I'm George Bishop. I'm a postdoc researcher at the University of Galway. So along with David Stiles, I am working on the quantitative environmental sustainability assessments for the project. Our primary tool is life cycle assessment, where we are assessing the environmental impacts of the priority bio-based value chains Wriju just mentioned. But we'll also be taking this a step further to explore how these value chains can contribute to a net zero island. As we heard from James, a key part of this effort involves foresight analysis, where we will model various future scenarios, not to predict or project futures, but to offer glimpses into plausible pathways and their implications. Oops, sorry. So today, I'm going to be presenting about an advanced LCA we're currently developing. So this work focuses on the pathway of low-value wood residues to bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, or BECCS. I'll begin by outlining the critical role BECCS plays in achieving a net zero future, and then share some initial findings from our ongoing study. So bear in mind, the exact values we might share today are likely to evolve as the study progresses, but the key takeaways will likely remain consistent. Okay, so I think it's pertinent to remind ourselves that our planet is currently in the throes of an unprecedented environmental catastrophe. Global average temperatures have risen by roughly 1.1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times, and that the IPCC warns that even minor increments in temperature, such as every 1/10 of a degree, can exacerbate the situation, disrupting weather patterns, intensifying extreme weather events like heat waves, floods, droughts, and wildfires, and accelerating glacial melts that contributes to rising sea levels. This warming is driven by unchecked greenhouse gas emissions. To limit warming to 1.5 degrees and mitigate the most severe impacts, the IPCC identifies that it's necessary to achieve net zero carbon dioxide by around 2050 and to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by around 2070, although most national targets, including Ireland's, aim for net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So rising temperatures, are directly linked to cumulative carbon dioxide emissions. This brings us to the concept of the carbon budget. In simple terms, there's a fixed budget, a maximum amount of carbon dioxide we can emit before we surpass the 1.5 degrees threshold. Every ton of carbon dioxide adds to global warming, regardless of when it's emitted. So this figure is a bit old now, and it's a bit uncertain, but we can see just how close we are to exceeding the global budget for 1.5 degrees. So while cumulative carbon dioxide emissions drives long-term warming, there's an important flip side. Cumulative CO2 emissions, cumulative CO2 removals are directly proportional to the amount of warming we can avoid. In other words, the more CO2 we remove from the atmosphere, the more we mitigate warming. So negative emissions offer three key benefits. First, CO2 removals can balance emissions that are difficult to eliminate, making this an essential strategy for reaching net zero. Second, if we overshoot the global carbon budget, we'll need to rely even more on removals to bring temperatures back down to 1.5 degrees. And finally, carbon dioxide removal technologies like BECCS are vital for, buying time whilst we decarbonize the rest of the bioeconomy. So bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, BECCS, is a process that captures and permanently stores carbon dioxide from the conversion of biomass into energy. The bioenergy is generated by burning biomass to generate electricity and heat. During this process, carbon dioxide is released, but instead of letting it escape into the atmosphere, carbon capture technology is applied to trap the emissions. The captured CO2 is then pressurized into a liquid-like state for transportation via ships and pipelines. Once transported, the CO2 is injected deep underground into porous rock formations, such as saline aquifers or depleted gas reservoirs, where it is safely and permanently sequestered. So forestry on its own is a highly effective carbon dioxide removal method, as trees absorb carbon dioxide throughout their lifetime. However, BECCS offers the potential for multiple cycles of carbon dioxide sequestration if each rotation of harvested biomass can be captured and sequestered. So that sounds great, but how do we ensure that what we're doing is actually environmentally sustainable? So that brings us to our study, where we applied dynamic life cycle assessments, an approach that goes beyond traditional LCA by focusing on the timing of emissions and removals. Our research quantifies the global warming impact of using sawmill residues for bioenergy with and without an immediate cascading use as particle board. We also connected the value chains to a key decision point in 2025, when to harvest a 30-year-old forest stand, considering different harvest intervals and varying levels of forest ecosystem carbon storage. Importantly, we accounted for how these factors evolve over time, including the gradual deployment of BECCS over the next 60+ years, from 0 BECCS today to 100% deployment in the future, alongside broader decarbonisation efforts in the technosphere. So essentially, we tracked 1 ton of carbon contained in sawmill residues through the entire value chain. Some of the biogenic carbon was lost along the value chain, some was temporarily stored in products or through delayed forest harvest, and some was permanently stored in geological formations. And at the same time, we tracked fossil carbon emissions from process inputs and avoided emissions, which diminish in intensity as decarbonisation progresses over time. Crucially, the study included counterfactual emissions, asking, what if we left the forest unharvested? This allowed us to compare the global warming impact against the potential carbon sequestration from leaving the forest to grow. So on this slide, we have 4 scenarios. In the top image, the sawmill residues are included without a cascading use. And in the bottom image, the cascading use is included. Each shows the carbon dioxide flows, biogenic CO2 in blue, and fossil CO2 in black. The top half shows the forest that is harvested in year 1, and the bottom half shows the same flows, but with a delayed harvest to year 31. So there's a lot going on here, so I won't go into every detail, as I could talk about this for over an hour, and no one would thank me for that. But the key takeaways are that delaying forest harvest can significantly increase the amount of biogenic carbon captured and locked away long-term through BECCS. On the other hand, as the economy decarbonizes, the carbon credits from substituting fossil-based processes gradually diminish. However, temporary carbon storage, such as keeping the biogenic carbon in products like particle board for a few decades before eventually using it for bioenergy, can still provide climate benefits. This approach allows the forest to regrow and absorb more carbon, while deferring combustion until carbon capture and storage technology is more widely deployed, thus enhancing long-term carbon removal. Okay, so there's a lot going on here as well, so I'll keep it short. But one of the key advantages of dynamic LCA is that we can explore cumulative radiative forcing over time, which is directly related to temperature changes. So anything below 0 on these graphs can be considered a climate neutral. So these 2 graphs show 2 different approaches we took to accounting for upstream forest dynamics. On the left, we used a forest level assessment, which looks at the carbon balance across an entire region or national forest. In this case, carbon fluxes at the stand level are assumed to balance out across the forest, resulting in stable overall carbon storage. This means that the bioenergy process isn't seen as influencing the overall forest carbon dynamics, so upstream emissions or storage are set to zero. On the right, we used a stands level assessment, which looks specifically at the difference in carbon storage between a harvested forest stand and a hypothetical unharvested stand. Here, the net difference in ecosystem carbon storage from the harvest is conservatively attributed to the bioenergy reference flow. So as you can see, the way we model the forest dynamics significantly affects the climate impact calculations. This highlights how important it is to carefully choose assumptions, as they can change the results and even risk misinterpretation. However, one consistent finding we found is that BECCS has a much better climate impact than bioenergy without carbon capture storage, especially when combined with a cascading product use. So I've already covered most of these key points, so I'll just skip on ahead here. Using dynamic life cycle assessment, we can enhance the climate impact assessments, particularly over longer time horizons. Unlike traditional approaches that rely on fixed timeframes like global warming potential over 100 years, dynamic LCA captures the timing of emissions and removals more effectively, especially when it comes to temporarily stored carbon. This avoids some of the oversimplifications and inconsistencies that can arise in static assessments. When we compare our dynamic LCA results with traditional static LCA using our same inventory, we found that dynamic LCA actually curbs the perceived climate benefits effects, giving us a more realistic and nuanced understanding of its long-term impact. As I begin my final remarks, I'd like to emphasize the key points. So this talk has focused on achieving net zero by 2050 and pathways through BECCS that can help us achieve this, a critical step in keeping temperatures below 1.5 degrees. However, it's important to remember that the 1.5 degree target isn't just a political benchmark. It's a physical threshold. Exceeding this limit would have dire consequences for Ireland and could be catastrophic for humanity as a whole, something that's often forgotten. So we know huge afforestation is required in Ireland to increase a large enough forest sink by 2050, which could be coupled nicely with BECCS for long-term sequestration. Bioenergy also offers a sustainable alternative to fossil fuels and complements intermittent renewables like wind and solar. However, we need to ensure that what we're doing is genuinely environmentally sustainable. And that starts with improving the modeling of such processes. And that's where this work can help. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Really insightful work again, and I think shows that we are placing and considering the carbon capture and sequestration as well as carbon capture and utilization in terms of the modeling work and how that can integrate with traditional bioeconomy pathways to maximize the impact. So well done. And George is midway through the work, so there's still a lot more work George and Wriju will be doing in terms of analysing these bio-based value chains. So we will be getting further updates on this as the project progresses. So well done. So let me just share slides. One other aspect of the project that we are working on and which is being led by our partners at Teagasc is the development of a bioeconomy monitoring framework. So this is, as I said in the introduction, a system for how we can understand and benchmark the bioeconomy over time against specific indicators across economic, environmental, and social aspects. And there are a number of existing bioeconomy monitoring frameworks that are out there at the moment. The JRC have a framework, individual countries are working on their framework. We're interested in something that can relate to these, but also something that is useful for us here in Ireland. And that's why Teagasc, ourselves, and the Central Statistics Office are collaborating to try and develop some of these approaches. So as a first step in this, Teagasc are launching a survey to inform the bioeconomy monitoring framework. You can access it using the QR code. So we're kind of pushing this out during Bioeconomy Ireland Week to try and get as many responses as possible. And then towards the start of next year, there'll be a workshop with stakeholders to help go through this in more detail and to really try and understand what people want from a monitoring system, what indicators are important for us to consider from an Irish perspective, from an Irish bioeconomy monitoring framework. So we'll send this survey out again when we follow up after the webinar today, so you have another chance to access it. But please, we'd be grateful to get your feedback on that. So now to the next stage of the webinar, where we talk a little bit about this research is really useful, but how can we bring this towards implementation? And that's why we've involved other actors who are involved in supporting the commercialization and enterprises and so on, who are interested in developing some bio-based or bioeconomy initiatives. And we see a lot of funded projects, INFORMBIO being one of them, where we think there's some really useful data being generated that could be taken on by, for example, companies, farmers, primary producers, cooperatives, other stakeholders to actually build up these initiatives into new bio-based value chains and opportunities. There's also other projects like CABI, NextGen Wood, U-Protein, funded by DAFM, for example, which are working on exploring new technological solutions. But as Wriju mentioned, there's a need to kind of get over this TRL level to get these products toward and technologies towards TRL 9 and commercialization. So that's what we're going to look at. How can we get there? In terms of the focus on research to implementation, it fits very timely with the Bioeconomy Action Plan, which was published last year, which had a key action around acceleration of bioeconomy pilot and demonstration projects. So this is a key priority for the government. We've seen this also through a number of launches of calls, for example, the EU Just Transition Fund, Bioeconomy Demonstration Initiative, and the Shared Island Bioeconomy Demonstration Initiative, which were both open for 2 demonstration projects. And the government is going to be investing 20 to 30 million in biorefinery pilot and demonstration capacity over the next 2 to 3 years. So some of these have been announced and some of these will be upcoming. There's also Ireland's National Biomethane Strategy, which was launched earlier this year, which is providing 40 million for scaling up biomethane production over the next year. And it's bioeconomy integration with the biomethane production has been indicated within the strategy as being a high priority. So the possibility of biorefining and bioenergy production. So again, there's been a number of announcements over the last year or so. Last week, we just had an announcement of 10 million for the EU Just Transition Fund award for 2 Midlands bioeconomy demonstration initiatives. That's something we might hear a little bit from some of our speakers later on. And also we recently received funding for the development of a demonstration scale green biorefinery and anaerobic digestion facility, which will be based at Farm Zero C and operationalized through European funding and the Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. So there's a lot happening. And of course, there are already companies who are very active in the bioeconomy space. There are already companies who have scaled technologies, who have been doing this for years, even here in Ireland, and many dairy processing facilities and food processing facilities are probably doing this already, even though we're not calling it that. So lots of opportunities, and Carmen has highlighted, and the rest of the team have highlighted this. So we're going to hear from some speakers to talk about the work they're doing in supporting this implementation journey. So first of all, we're going to hear from the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation, and we're going to pass over to Sean O'Grady, and Sean is the Chief Operations Officer of Irish Bioeconomy Foundation. So Sean, I might let you share your screen if that's okay. Can you hear us, Sean?
Hi, James. I don't see Sean connected.
Okay, so what we might,
continue.
I see that Sean is on the call, but what we might do is if we skip the queue maybe, and then we can try and see if Sean is having difficulty. So if it's okay, could we go first to Catriona Power? Catriona is cluster manager at the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster.
Absolutely, James. Happy
Thanks,
to
Catriona.
jump in and help you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Just waiting for my screen to share. 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. We see your screen in black. So
Yeah, there's it seems to be a little bit slow in coming up. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. Maybe Wriju, if you have the backup slides.
Yeah, I have 1 moment.
Thank you. Sorry, seems that my screen seems to have frozen.
I promise everybody we've done a round of testing.
We can actually see it now, Catriona.
Oh, can you see it now?
Yeah,
Perfect,
we can.
perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Sorry for the glitch there. My name is Catriona Power. I'm the cluster manager at Circular Bioeconomy Cluster. We're based at Munster Technological University. We're funded by Enterprise Ireland through the Regional Technology Clustering Fund, and we're founded by the CircBio Research Group. So our mission is to work with companies, help them develop business opportunities and collaborative projects to support sustainability, bioeconomy, and circular economy value creation. And I really love what the team from INFORMBIO have shared today, because when we look at that data, it's so important, to understand to help those businesses create value from the biomasses, but to do it in a sustainable way. And I really want to thank all the team for all their hard work in doing this extensive piece of work. And I think it's very, very important for all the companies and researchers that we work with across the board. And it will really help our industry membership as well. So we're an industry-driven cluster, and so we have about almost 70 members working on bio-based value creation. So they're developing new value chains across the agri-food sector, the marine sector, using those types of feedstocks. And then they have different types of customers, whether that's in the construction sector, whether it's in textiles and packaging and things like that. We're working really hard on creating, supporting these bio-based value chains. So we have a number of different programs and services for our membership. All these companies are from across Ireland as well. And the programs and the services that we offer, it actually all started, back in 2021. We co-developed our strategy with industry, and this is what they said they wanted help with. Support with project development, really effective quality projects, how is it going to help their business growth? How's it going to help their product development and things like that? So we help a lot with that type of activity. We help them with knowledge transfer, so helping to access to local and global connections, accessing expert workshops, and seeking best practice as well. We also do a lot of curated networking, so connecting companies with potential suppliers, with researchers for different types of projects as well. And that was recently done through one of our, excuse me, one of our projects called BioDirect. It's actually an all-island project, but very important when we're thinking about creating a resilient supply chain on the island of Ireland in terms of bio-based value chains. On the talent piece, we connect in with because we're based at university, which is fantastic, but we work with all other universities as well across Ireland, and TUs and the traditional ones. And we really connect in on the training and support for companies when they're looking at the bio-based product development as well. Excuse me, I'll just take a sip of water. So we really help on that piece. And then on the funding, we help companies, if they have a project, we help them identify and signpost to the various different fundings that are available. We also offer paid for services to the membership. So if they need support with their market growth, their business plans, or internationalization, we have different programs for that as well. In terms of our alignment with the National Bioeconomy Action Plan, we are very much aligned to the Bioeconomy Action Plan, and we help, meet in terms of the actions that we align to. It's all about, helping to facilitate public and stakeholder understanding of the bioeconomy, helping to develop North-South collaboration and international collaborations as well. Excuse me, supporting bioeconomy innovation support services to help companies access those. And we also enhance existing innovation supports as well. So that's the type of activity that we do that aligns to the National Bioeconomy Action Plan. I suppose just in terms of a few case studies, I just wanted to highlight to kind of add a bit of colour to what I'm speaking about. We have really over the past 3 years been looking at the wool sector. As you may know, there was a huge problem around low value of wool in the market, and the farmers aren't receiving, an adequate income from that. So we looked at the different market opportunities. We looked at, the potential value chain opportunities there are for wool and how to create value for that. We helped to launch, Ireland's Wool Hub, which connects researchers with industry to work on those business development opportunities. And we've also contributed to the initiation of the Irish Grown Wool Council as well, all with the aim of creating value, higher value for Irish grown wool, and making sure that there's business models that are appropriate for farmers to be able to attain a higher value. So this is really exciting because we're stimulating demand for Irish wool. As companies require bio-based substitutes for their products, which is really exciting. We're also helping to create and, accelerate the marketplace as well. And we have at least 10 projects going on across the network and in adapting and integrating wool into products and things like that. So that's really exciting. I guess then when we move over to the blue economy sector, because we work across both, we have a number of companies working in blue economy in our cluster, ranging from Simply Blue Group, who both do seaweed and offshore, wind energy, to the seaweed companies like Brandon Bioscience, BioAtlantis, Pure Ocean Algae, but then also some companies who do like software and things like that in the supply chain, like Verifact, and then you also have the seafood companies as well. So all these companies are looking at value add opportunities, and they're implementing those, whether it's using wild seaweed or aquaculture. They're also looking at operational sustainability and digitalization, and we help them on accessing various different, experts, or they can access their programs to help whatever they need to do to be able to help grow their business. And that's fundamentally, the goal of our cluster. We're also linked into a number of Blue Bioeconomy European projects, which is all about, revitalizing our blue economy here to kind of look towards bioeconomy, and they range from marine biotechnology projects to revitalizing ports in the local area, as well as engaging with stakeholders as well, and kind of educating about the blue bioeconomy opportunity as well. In terms of our impact over the past 3.5 years that we've been in operation, we have about 68 members in total. Of those, it's 63 industry members. Most of those are SMEs, which is really good, and about 10 corporations. Excuse me. We've spun up a number of business collaboration projects, almost 40 at this point. We've developed a number of educational offerings for the cluster members. We've helped those members connect into international projects as well to help them with whether it's product development or whatever it might be, and also helped, in terms of, I suppose, supporting RDI activity and connecting into, new funding opportunities for the companies as well. So that's just a bit of a snapshot about what we do at the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster, and happy to take any questions or have any follow-up after. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Catriona, and thanks for giving a great overview of the work of the cluster. And if you do have any questions for Catriona or other implementation speakers, just pop them in the chat. Sean, I think Sean O'Brady, we check if you're back with us, and we can go ahead with the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation. Okay, so Sean is the Chief Operations Officer for IBF. So giving the floor to you, Sean.
Thank you, James. And hopefully here we can just get the slideshow on the road. Yeah, thank you, and thanks for organising the event, and thanks for the invite, James, here to speak here today. This is in my first official capacity as operation officers in IBF, newly appointed operation officer. Hopefully to progress this to advance this over the next couple of years, where we have some maybe exciting events happening over the next 12 to 24 months. So just a bit of background here for the IBF and what the IBF is about. So Irish Bioeconomy Foundation is a not-for-profit organisation funded through Enterprise Ireland, and in support of that is the idea to collaborate with a number of industry partners and RPOs across the country. Leaning very much on the work there that's been done in MTU and elsewhere regarding the feedstock and biomass mapping and feedstock quantification, and work then trying to put together the technologies needed to convert these into valuable products. So with that in mind, the mission for the IBF is to promote the conversion of Ireland's resources into high value products. The campus, the IBF campus, national campus, is in the middle of the kind of Tipperary, in this kind of decarbonisation zone, which was part of kind of the EU Just Transition Fund a number of years back. And again, it's the only kind of inland county that's designated for this kind of a decarbonisation zone. The site itself is located just on the kind of Tipperary-Kilkenny border. I'm very familiar with myself. It's very close to my own hometown here in Thurles. And it was originally part of the Vedanta Zinc International Mining Facility. And back a number of years ago, there was truckloads of zinc ore and being extracted and being exported from this particular site. So it was a very substantial site, over 1,000 acres when it was as a mining facility. And as part of the closure of the mine, there was an interest both from the mining owners plus the Tipperary County Council, EPA and others there, other stakeholders that were keen to redevelop this infrastructure, not to lose some of the infrastructure, but to further enhance what's there, and to develop this into something of a legacy. So with that in mind, this was the Irish Bioeconomy Foundation was evolved from that. So this particular visual here is of the mine when it was in an operational state back almost a decade ago. And right in the center of that, you'll see kind of a teepee, which was for some of the ore extraction storage. But just to maybe the left-hand side of that, there's an actual building that's still in existence today. That building is now part of the IBF, and here's a couple of images of some of the infrastructure internally within that building. This is where it has we've a number of fermenters, reactors, dry lab, analytical lab area, and this is going to be further developed over the next kind of 12 to 24 months, which I'll kind of get into shortly. So that's some of the existing facilities set up, and this is where again we're collaborating, working with RPOs, industries, to support their requirement to valorize certain products coming from the dairy agri industry, and to be able to support that to enhance their own requirements and commercialization. So again, looking at that over techno-economic analysis and being able to scale up from lab to commercialization and deployment opportunities, where we're the stepping stone in the middle of that to facilitate that aspect. So you can see here, I suppose, this visual or this infographic here in terms of where we see the facility, and again we're kind of operating in the scale of between bench and pilot scale to allow for the I suppose the development, going from lab to commercialization and being able to kind of perform that intermediate step in a kind of an appropriate environment with the right facilities and utilities available. So with that in mind, some of the, I suppose, announcement I think, James, you referred to quite recently. So the application for the Just Transition Fund finished actually 12 months ago, almost to the date, 13th October 23. It was just officially announced last week in terms of the JTF being awarded. One was to the IBF and a lot of their partners involved in that. So again, that's where there was a number of RPOs that came together, aligned with IBF, and this is where we're kind of looking to, again, with these bigger stakeholders, is looking at the pilot and demonstration of systems and technologies to allow the valorization of various biomass streams. So again, the scale up and demonstration technologies is where we're particularly involved, is typically in that 6 to 8 scale. So again, this is where we're at our optimum range. So again, we're looking at the kind of scales anywhere from about 30 litres up to 3,000 litres and beyond, where we're looking at again, bio refining capabilities, and using fermentations, thermochemical, biochemical, chemical reactions, where again, we're investing into various bits of technologies over the next period of time to enhance what our current setup is and to facilitate, I suppose, the ambitions of the overall kind of bioeconomy clusters that are there at the moment. So again, there's as part of the bioeconomy campus, there's, I suppose, a number of activities in terms of research, SME services, for industry, setting up training and industrial scale up opportunities then that can come from all that. And within that mind, I suppose we're looking at various biomass sources, and again, some of them come back to me. Carmen had quantified earlier on, and some of the mapping that she had performed. But in terms of kind of dairy sludges, side streams, organic waste streams, forestry waste streams, looking at these particular products, looking at how we can valorize those particular components using equipment and facilities that we have available and utilities that we have available at the IBF, establishing kind of a training hub and skills and demonstrations and accommodating technologies and development of technologies on the site. Obviously, the dissemination that would be part and parcel of that aspect, and again, allowing the kind of the services there in terms of trialing, testing, pilot testing, and I suppose a very important aspect then would be the access to finance thereafter. So again, IBF would have very strong links to both kind of national and European funds. Again, the previous CEO, Filippo Martinelli, is now with Gaffey, would have a lot of relationships here in Ireland, and again, where they've been quite successful in landing funding EU funds for various projects. So again, we have kind of a direct link with Filippo, and again, he's been very successful in landing various projects within Ireland and elsewhere. Quite recently there as well, there has the announcement, obviously, the biomethane community and the setup of the biomethane development office, which again is kind of based in Tipperary. It's aligned with kind of IBF. IBF will be hosting some of the personnel and resources associated with that, and obviously we're kind of looking to over time looking to demonstrate advanced techniques in the area of anaerobic digestion. And again, this is kind of the some of the work that took place in relation to the project. And again, I suppose what we're particularly looking at is phase 1 of the biomethane community side of things, where again the building kind of the capacity for the research phase. So again, that's again going to be in alignment with TUS and in alignment with IBF to kind of support those actions. And obviously the Tipperary Energy Agency is also involved quite heavily in that, and obviously Tipperary County Council. just recently, in the last week there as well, you'll see that there was being a book launch as well, which was in collaboration with Mario Bonscorso, who again would have authored the book, supported again through BioOrbit, Kevin O'Connor. Again, what is the circular bioeconomy? So that was being launched there quite only last week, and again has been the support of IBF, and so that's a book now that's available in all good bookshops, I suppose, but again available again through the IBF website, where again can be readily procured. And again, that's kind of it, James. So again, feel free to kind of reach out to IBF, either Stephen Napier or myself. Again, there's lots of opportunities there to investigate, and again, we have a very much open door policy to discussions with any SMEs or technology developers that are looking for a location to support certain activities, particularly in the valorization of various bioeconomy sources and resources.
Thanks, Sean. That was great. Thanks for the overview of the work of IBF, and congrats on the recent funding. Okay, so if you have any questions for Sean, again, you can put them in the chat. So next I'm going to pass over to Ian Archer. So Ian is CEO of BioConnect, who are based in, I think, Monaghan, Ian, and on the northeast jurisdiction, I suppose, shall we say, east and northeast. So over to you, Ian.
Sure. And I've just messed up my screen, which I thought I was sharing, and now it has failed on me. So let me just start again.
Sure.
Apologies for that. Here we go with this. This has not happened to me before. My own presentation has disappeared from my own screen. I'm guessing you can see it, but I can't.
We can't see it. It's a clear screen for us unless it's loading. I'm not sure.
Maybe it's loading. I'm struggling. Maybe I've got the same problem Catriona had, I don't know.
Wriju, could we see if we can find Ian's just in case we need to?
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen if that helps.
Thank you.
Go here. Can you see the screen?
I know you had
Yeah,
a
that's
video
good.
you wanted
That's
to
good.
present, Ian. So it's
No, it's okay. It's Wriju can help me out with this. I'll just ask you to move it on if that's okay, Wriju. So actually, you know what? Actually, I've sorted my screen. I'm good. Okay. Let me share mine, Wriju, because it's slightly easier if I do it. Apologies. It was my computer playing up. Let me get that now. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go. You can see that?
Yeah.
And you can see the right screen, I hope. Yep,
Yeah,
that's good. Okay, so thanks very much again to James and the team for the invitation here. It's really good to be involved. So as I say, I'm Ian Archer, and I'm the CEO at the BioConnect Innovation Centre in Monaghan, in County Monaghan. Before I start, I'd actually just want to say something about James mentioned earlier on about the work that Carmen spoke about earlier. The bioresource mapping tool was inspired, or maybe was originally built on some of the work that was done in Scotland way back nearly 10 years ago now. And I just wanted to say what a fantastic job I think you've done on taking that kind of the start that we did there and turning into something really useful and tangible. Unfortunately, the Scottish authorities, Scottish funding agencies weren't quite I guess committed enough to carry on investing in it, but you've taken it from something which was a basic idea. Originally, the bioresource mapping program from Zero Waste Scotland was going to be a large report, and it would have probably been a 200-page report, which was just a list of stuff that was available in Scotland, and it would not have been the most riveting read. And it was actually IBioC that funded the idea of a tool behind it. But what we never managed to do was get something which was as well. First of all, was as comprehensive as what you've done, and certainly nowhere near as user-friendly as what you've done there. I think it's one of the most important things that needs to happen in the bioeconomy. And I think because of what you've done here, Ireland is a long way ahead of anywhere else I can think of across Europe. Certainly way better than Scotland, and Scotland's way better than anywhere else in the UK in terms of how it understands its resource flow. So I think it's a phenomenal piece of work, and I'd really encourage everybody to play with it and use it and dig into it as much as possible to understand those numbers as best we possibly can. So yeah, apologies, I shouldn't have spent a minute of my time telling that, but I do think it's a really important point to make. So anyway, BioConnect is a new innovation centre in Monaghan. As I said, it's an Enterprise Ireland REDF funded project with strong support from local industry, in particular the local dairy and poultry sectors, and also Monaghan Group Mushrooms. The top picture here is actually what the building looked like a little while ago. It looks a little bit better than that now. We've got some landscaping around the outside, but it's still not quite finished. Should be handed over early 2025. I won't pretend it's been a straightforward construction job, but we seem like I think we're back on track now, and we're expecting handover early in the new year. And really our focus is industry-driven biotech development and innovation. I put research in brackets here. I think we're beyond the research stage. We're about developing and innovating and taking things to commercialization, but very specifically industry-led, industry-driven programs here. So as part of that program, obviously we are looking to create that network of bioeconomy companies and other stakeholders in our region, including the supporting academic base. But again, the key thing for us here is to grow our members' businesses through innovation, creating those value chains between technology providers. Often these are SMEs, startups with ideas, and then linking them into end users who actually might have feedstocks or access to markets. And as part of that, we advocate and protect members' interests with, for example, working with the council. We can be a kind of translator between technology and government there to help government understand some of these opportunities. And we're also expecting this to be part of, as Catriona mentioned earlier, developing the next skilled workforce through people that are going to be working in our facilities. So in practical terms, what are we? We are going to be focused very much on, we're basically a bioprocess development organisation, and so working for local agri-food industry. That's going to be focused around precision fermentation of a smaller scale than we've just heard from Sean. So we're probably up to that 30 to 100 litre scale, which is why we are quite complementary and happy to be very complementary to the IBF here and work closely with IBF. So precision fermentation followed obviously by the downstream processing of those materials, whether that's from those fermentations or just biorefining of products from other biomass. As part of that work, really, and this is building on some of the work that Catriona described here about helping companies to understand the role of biotech in their innovation journeys, how that might affect their sustainability, their new product introduction, and guiding companies through that economic assessment. We've heard lots about that already. It's difficult for companies to understand. The biotechnology is difficult enough in the first place, but my background in biotechnology began at a company called Ingenza, and we had companies, our customers at Ingenza always had the same problems. They were often chemical companies, didn't really know what a bioeconomy was, didn't know what biotechnology was. Maybe they were chemical companies or similar, and they'd always ask the same three questions of us. It was like, how long is this going to take? How much is it going to cost? And will it work? Because they really didn't have that technical background, and we're helping companies, guiding companies through that economic and risk assessment of their innovation options. And then the final area we're working in, again, is something similar to what Sean's just talked about, is understanding is around resource efficiency in our region. I didn't quite get a screenshot of Carmen's picture of all of the Sankey diagram of all the various counties, but I did see Monaghan and Cavan as being two of the largest producers of poultry waste, which is not unexpected, and actually probably the biggest impact BioConnect could have outside of its own laboratories in our region is to create a grouping and to encourage the investment in what I think will probably be the largest anaerobic digestion biorefinery in the country, built around the poultry waste that's coming from Monaghan and Cavan. And in particular, while that will generate a reasonable amount of energy, what it will also do is underpin the sustainability of that poultry industry. All of the waste, the water that runs away in our waterways from Monaghan, and I think from lots of Cavan as well, ends up in Lough Neagh. And if you Google Lough Neagh at the moment, you'll see why that's such an important problem. So they're the three areas we're really focusing on. If I come back to the first one around bioprocess development, actually, before I jump onto that, I'll just tell you a little bit more. We do actually have some space available for companies as well. So we are, it's a two-story building, 800 square meters each level. There are 6 labs on the ground floor with some ancillary labs associated with those, and they're available. That's where our operations will be, where we're working with companies, our own scientists working with companies to develop processes, but also we have space available for companies to come in, whether that's a single desk, a little bit of lab space, or even a whole lab. Upstairs is a blank canvas for an anchor tenant coming in. We are looking to rent that entire space so they could come and that would be to a company that specializes in some kind of biotechnology, bioprocess. And we've got a few companies interested in that space already. But the idea is to try and reinforce this idea of a biotechnology cluster in the Monaghan region. And we've got space immediately adjacent to the building to build another 2 BioConnects alongside if we need to, when as those companies hopefully develop and grow. So coming back to the specifics of what we'll be doing inside the building, as I said, we are a bioprocess development organisation. That's effectively what we're going to be doing. We're not the only people doing that. We're at a smaller complementary scale to what Sean described at the IBF, but we're not that different to others, say in the UK or in Europe, who can do something similar. So I want to focus BioConnect really around some advanced analytic technologies. I'm a process chemist by training. That's where I started my career. And when you start to develop chemical processes, the first thing you do is make sure your analytics are absolutely bang on, so you actually understand the data that's coming out of your labs. And it's been a frustration for me my whole time working in biotechnology and bioprocessing that we don't have that same level of detail around bioprocesses, and it's for good reason. They're much more complicated and much more difficult to analyze because of the complexity of biological systems. But I don't think that's a reason for putting our heads in the sand. So what we want to do at BioConnect is we're going to position ourselves as very much an advanced analytics facility, and we want to bring in technology that actually has been developed at the University of Edinburgh. So I need to reference in particular Carl Burgess and his team here, who have developed a technology which I think is absolutely groundbreaking in this space. Conceptually, it's actually a pretty straightforward thing. You saw a minute ago from Sean's slides, fermenters. So here we've got a fermenter, and what we're really doing is just connecting a fermenter to a mass spec via a pump, and we're putting material straight from the fermenter straight into the mass spec. And what that allows us to do is generate really incredibly rich data sets in real time and really understand exactly what's happening in these processes. So rather than thinking about these bioprocesses as a black box where you're not quite sure what's going on, we're very much shining a light on what happens inside. And then rather than just maybe focusing on a couple of analytes that we know we're interested in, what this allows us to do is measure hundreds, if not thousands, of analytes and their concentrations very simultaneously and in real time, which really does make a huge difference to how we will approach process development, and that should de-risk de-risk development for the companies we're working with. So I'm going to show you a little video here. It's only a few seconds long, but it kind of gives a really good picture of what's happening, of why this is potentially a really valuable technique. So on the right hand side here is a very little zoomed in section of some metabolic pathways that are going on in all of our bodies right now. The top half is glycolysis, from how we convert sugars into small molecules like pyruvate and acetyl-CoA, and the bottom half is around how we convert those molecules into either energy or biomass. And this is just a small part of central metabolism, but remember what we're looking at potentially is a much broader picture than this. This is from a fermentation actually that was being run at the University of Edinburgh for Ingenza. And what Ingenza were trying to do was make succinate, which you can see at the bottom of that screen. When I click the video to play in a minute, what you're going to see is this little blue, oops, done that. The little blue box here is going to move from left to right. That shows the time course of the reaction. In the first half, as it runs up to the little dotted line, is the batch phase where we're just consuming glucose, and at the dotted line we're going to start adding more glucose continually, and you'll see a change in the process at that point. And what happens, we also turn the oxygen off there, and the whole metabolism switches, but you can see it quite clearly when I press play here, and you'll see how this animates. So remember, this is real data captured in real time during a fermentation process. So the wee blue box is moving across on the left here, and you're going to start to see the size of the boxes, obviously, or the boxes of the circles changes is the concentration of those materials. We've just run out of glucose at that point, so we're going to start feeding more glucose in, also turn the oxygen off in this, or the air off in this system, and then the chemistry changes. We start accumulating a few bits and pieces over here, and over time what we're going to start to see at the bottom is succinate being produced. Now that's a level of detail that I have never seen in any kind of bioprocess development before, and if you're thinking about looking at any product, any biological product in a fermentation, this is a technology that's very much amenable to that. So I want to be positioning BioConnect as a place where you can come and get this kind of analysis done. So if you're running fermentation processes in your own laboratories or in your own systems, we'll be able to run them for you and get you this level of detail that we're expecting, that we can pull together from this type of analysis. So last week, BioConnect and Queen's University submitted a very large grant application as part of the Peace Plus program, which we are hoping will be how we deliver this as a technology. And I think we'll be the first organisation anywhere in the world that actually allows this level of analysis for fermentation type processes. And I just wanted to finish just to kind of reiterate really on something that Catriona had started to talk about. I think I talked about us working at a local level, and that was very much the focus of BioConnect, to link together companies in the agri-food sector in the northeast of the country. But I think we can do this at a much wider level. Catriona has already just described, I think, really well the first half of, or the first part of the process when we're looking to develop processes, and which is that business development activity, I would view it, where she's talking to companies and putting together collaborations. And then it's the role of organisations like BioConnect and the IBF to then take those leads and take those collaborations and turn them into something practical in the laboratories. And I think the key focus here is that we maintain our focus on this being industry-driven development and innovation. So I think I'll finish there. My contact details, if anyone would like to get in touch, either if you're looking for projects or you're interested in using space, or even just having a chat about what our technologies are going to be, then I'd be more than happy to speak to people.
Thanks very much, Ian. Great presentation, and you can really see a difference in what the three different organizations are offering to members as well, which I think is really nice as well. So if you have any questions for Ian, please put them in the chat. I know that we have gone about 10 minutes over, or we will be by the time we're finished. So and yet the numbers haven't gone down. So it speaks very poorly of my timekeeping skills, but speaks very well of the quality of the presenters that we've had. So our final speaker is Sean Mulvaney, and Sean is going to talk about funding. Sean works as a senior investment manager for the National Treasury Management Agency for the agriculture and food sector. But I know Sean joined us on a recent trip to Denmark, I think last year, looking at the wonderful bioeconomy activities happening out there. So I think there's an eye on some of the bioeconomy opportunities as well. So I'll pass over to you, Sean.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. So the usual question, can people see my screen?
Yeah, we can. It's perfect.
So perhaps a slight change in theme from probably research and research infrastructure to maybe the investment side. Maybe just to make clear, obviously the particular area we work in is ultimately directly and indirectly investing in companies that are bringing innovations to market. With respect to the research and the research infrastructure itself, obviously we've heard mention of Enterprise Ireland, and there'd also be Research Ireland and EU funding that we've heard about as well. Maybe just hold on, just make sure all this moves. Great. So maybe just a quick intro to the team. So the 9 smaller circles to the right is the food and agriculture team. Just to point out, we've a wide variety of skill sets from corporate finance through to deep understanding of both primary agriculture as well as food processing, circular bioeconomy, ag tech also. And on the left there, Nick Ashmore, who actually runs the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund, and Rebecca Brady that we report to. So maybe just about who we are, because sometimes you probably would have seen I work for the National Treasury Management Agency, which is also true, but ISAF is part of the National Treasury Management Agency. So it's a sovereign development fund. It's been around for the last 10 years, about 8.5 billion euros worth of assets under management. We have, which will be relevant, about a 1.3 billion venture portfolio from early stage through scaling investments and also debt provision. Number of other agencies within the National Treasury Management Agency, not least the original function that we had, which was managing the national debt and raising new national debt. So there are 4 teams in the Ireland Strategic Investment Fund. So we're at the bottom, food and agriculture. And critically, we're trying to support the transition of Irish food and agriculture to being perhaps the most sustainable system it can be, and preferably most sustainable system in the world. We have 3 other teams as well. So we have a climate team. They have a target to deploy $1 billion. They started 2 years ago, plan to do that over the next 2 years with respect to climate change mitigation and adaptation. We've housing and enabling investments. That's everything from building the new housing to help us deal with the housing crisis right the way through to areas like port redevelopment, urban redevelopment. And then we have the Indigenous Business Group that's helping all manner of businesses from fintech to life science companies grow and scale. I might spend just a little bit of time here because certainly these are perhaps the different ways that we can invest, just to give you a flavor of what that is. So we can invest directly for equity. So we've done that with companies like Green Island, West Cork Distillers. I'd point out that whether it's debt or equity that we provide, our minimum check size is 10 million and up. We can provide debt as well. So for example, the Kilkenny cheese plant was a collaboration between us and a number of other debt providers to help build out a new continental cheese plant in Kilkenny. That in turn was a collaboration between Glanbia, as it was then, to provide the milk and Royal Airware in terms of the offtake for continental cheeses. Closer to home with respect to the circular bioeconomy is Green Generation, which is our first investment with respect to anaerobic digestion. And we hope to both directly and indirectly have a number of other of those investments. When I say indirectly, I mean through funds. So if you look at the third area down here, third row, we have a number of relevant funds to the circular bioeconomy. For example, we've invested in 2 different funds managed by Sean O'Sullivan Ventures. The first is an early stage fund to help startups in the circular bioeconomy space, among others. We also have, for slightly later stage funding, say check size of 5 million and above, we have the Ireland Biomanufacturing Fund. And this is an opportunity to support companies both in Ireland and companies globally that want to scale into Ireland, that might want to upcycle waste or side streams emerging from the Irish food and agricultural sectors into higher value products. And then we have, for example, infrastructure funds, like, for example, the Foresight Fund with respect to building the CapEx that you'd need to realize these opportunities. That could, in principle, be anything from biorefineries to other initiatives. And then finally, at the bottom, we have platforms, or what we call platforms, and these are bespoke responses to the needs of Irish industry. Milkflex might be sort of relevant with respect to, this was initially an investment in Irish dairy to help expansion in 2015, where individual farmers could have drawdown of smaller loans up to maybe 100k plus, in order to help with expansion. But happily, over the last 4 or 5 years, I'd say 70–80% of those drawdowns now by farmers are to do with sustainability. So increasing everything from on-farm renewable energy to planting trees and hedgerows, etc. And this could be, at least in theory, a response to maybe the needs of primary agriculture to grow the kind of crops and the kind of biomass that we'll need to realize the circular bioeconomy ambitions. Yeah, some of the relevant investments I've probably covered off. Biomethane already. In terms of carbon farming, we're part of the carbon farming working group. So we're trying to feed into the standards and the overlying governance with respect to the emergence of carbon farming. And we're working hard at the moment at a couple of pilot projects, hopefully bringing some through for investment, maybe to prove out the thesis and begin to sell some carbon credits in the space. I've covered biomanufacturing already. We have numerous ag tech investments, both dedicated ag tech funds and food tech funds that invest in the space, and then several climate tech funds that, as part of their focus on reducing emissions across the economy, would allocate up to 30% for food tech, ag tech, circular bioeconomy. And we'll have a new announcement today, I think, for another Irish manager, first time Ireland manager in this space, that has an early stage fund. So lots of investment potential there for startups as well as scale-ups. And then finally on food tech, we recently have had an announcement on a Series B or scaling fund for food tech. So our vision is to help Irish companies in the circular bioeconomy, food tech, ag tech space to deliver the services and products that will enable Ireland to become a sustainable food creator well into the future. So thank you. I'll hand back perhaps to James, our compere, see if there are any questions I might answer.
Thanks, Sean, much appreciated. So that finished it off nicely, I think, in terms of the supports on offer and then linking to the financial supports as well. So we have a few questions that we're just going to do before we finish up. So one of the questions, if the speakers want to turn your cameras back on, one of the questions is for George. There's actually a couple came in for George Bishop, which is in addition to looking at carbon in the life cycle assessments, is there also an assessment of other environmental impacts, for example, biodiversity, given that there have been problems with non-native tree monocultures used as carbon farms, but greatly damaging biodiversity and soil conditions? Any comments, George?
Yeah, so I mean, simply put, we don't directly assess biodiversity in this particular study. However, I completely agree that it's crucial to consider and model biodiversity before making any forestry or land use decisions. So in our study, we do account for soil carbon in the stand level assessments, though our focus is on better utilizing kind of the sawmill residues, which are more of a near waste byproduct in forestry activities. That being said, when it comes to expanding forestry, whilst it's of course necessary to avoid poor and damaging practices, there are many regulations and restrictions now in place to avoid the mistakes of the past. If anything, I think the licensing systems are maybe too cumbersome now. A net zero future is going to need a mix of native broadleafs and conifer species, along with ensuring that these bioeconomy opportunities support a just transition. And I don't think there's going to be a way that we can avoid that mix. It's going to be crucial, I think. Hope that answered that question.
Yeah, thanks, George. And I think on the LCA side, we are looking at more than carbon. We mightn't be extending to biodiversity, but we are looking at other impact categories as well. Another question for you, George, from Patrick is, as well as bioenergy, does biorefinery or other bio-based technologies have a role, and can the model capture this possibility? And I presume this is in reference to the BECCS aspect, and that is something I think we've been discussing around products as well.
So absolutely. I mean, although we don't include it in this study, our future with where we're going in this project is kind of to link we've got lots of different tools at our disposal. We've got these LCAs of these multiple value chains we're going to be doing, which includes biorefineries and AD. We have the Goblin model, which James talked about, which is our big land use model. And basically, it's going to be involved putting all these tools together to explore what a net zero island could look like. That's going to involve not just one aspect, it's going to involve all of these technologies, all of these land use requirements kind of working together. And that's definitely what we're going to be exploring, especially in the later half of the project.
Perfect, George. Ian, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think Patrick raised a really interesting question here, and I think it's also one that we probably should throw towards Wriju as well, because I think that while energy is obviously important and it's the thing we focus on when we talk about biogas and biomethane, when I look at the situation around Monaghan, I alluded to it in my presentation, we certainly could build a very, very large biorefinery in Monaghan and generate a large amount of biogas from that, which is great. We should be doing that. But I'm not convinced that's the really big benefit of that process. I think the big benefit is actually the biorefining aspect. It's about taking all of that nitrogen, all that phosphorus, and converting it into a usable form, which can be carefully transported where it's needed, probably off the island altogether, to places where it's actually in short supply as opposed to being too abundant. And somehow we need to be able to build that calculation into our cost models and our environmental models, right? It's the benefit, it's the fact that it will enable the local poultry industry in Monaghan and in Cavan to actually be fully sustainable and not cause the environmental impact it has right now. And I don't think we're quite there yet, for good reason. It's complicated, but that feels like the next step of this kind of modeling.
Thanks, Ian. Carmen, a question for you is from Emmanuel. If some of the data are estimated or there's assumptions built in, how do we ensure the accuracy, or what criteria did you use to ensure the accuracy? Given the amount of feedstock, this is very case by case.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's very case by case. We've always ensured to get the most up-to-date data from statistics trustful sources, such as Central Statistics Office from Ireland, CSO. Those are being very helpful for us. They are a partner in this project specifically, so most of the data come from that. Also, Eurostat and FEIOstat. So statistically, we try to use trustful sources. Then there's specific cases, scenarios where perhaps we don't know the production of every beer producer in Ireland, for example, and we have had to estimate those. However, we have interviewed around 40 stakeholders from different backgrounds to try to ensure that we are not saying silly things and we are not making up our data at all. So our data has been reviewed and validated through a number of interview stakeholders reviews. So we feel that we need to warn everybody that this may not represent the reality, but we feel very sure that this is a nice estimation in the end.
Yeah, and I think any company who is going to develop its bio-based enterprise will use this data as a starting point, but will need to do their own feasibilities, their own engagement with stakeholders, where they can source their feedstock to get a better understanding of this. And I think this is a very useful starting point, and I think also linking the research to the people we've mentioned on the ground, Sean, Ian, Catriona, is a really useful step, because I think that's where companies also need to be engaging with people who can support them as well as the research institutes. So that's do we have one more? Is it clear when using the model which data is actually data and which is estimated, and the quality of that estimate? Well, it would be in the reports anyway, Carmen. I think it's very clearly identified in the reports. Yeah. Okay, well, look, really appreciate everyone for logging on, and really big thanks to all of our great speakers today. I think it's been very, very interesting, and it's great to have had so many great talks from outside the project as well as from inside the project. We would encourage you, Carmen, put the link for the INFORMBIO website in the chat box, and we also have a link for that survey on the bioeconomy monitoring framework in the chat box as well. But we will follow up after the webinar in the next day or so with the YouTube link, and with the sending additionally these links that we have shared during the webinar as well. So thanks very much to all of you, and have a very happy Bioeconomy Ireland week for the rest of the week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.